Whispers of the Mountain. In the serene mountain town of Pinecrest, where towering evergreens brushed the sky and streams sang softly through the valley, two hearts found solace in each other, bound by the quiet but undeniable pull of love. Kara and Emily's connection began as a flicker, but soon grew into something that would challenge the boundaries of tradition, family, and the strength of their bond. Kara, with her wild brown curls and deep hazel eyes, was the daughter of Pinecrest's beloved forest ranger. Her life was woven into the fabric of the mountains: long hikes along rocky trails, afternoons beneath the shade of tall pines, and evenings spent in the warmth of her family's log cabin. She had been raised with a profound love for nature and a strong sense of duty to protect the lands that had nurtured generations. Kara carried herself with quiet grace and determination, much like the steadfast peaks that stood tall around Pinecrest. Emily Whitman, on the other hand, was a breath of fresh mountain air. A skilled woodworker with a talent for crafting intricate designs from fallen trees, Emily had come to Pinecrest a few years ago, bringing with her a warmth and energy that quickly won over the town. Her blonde hair was always speckled with sawdust, and her hands, though callous from her craft, moved with a gentle artistry that turned forgotten logs into beautiful pieces of furniture. Emily's laugh was infectious, and her spirit seemed as boundless as the horizon seen from the mountain's summit. Their worlds collided one crisp autumn morning at Pinecrest's local market. Kara was gathering supplies for a weekend hike when she noticed Emily loading her handcrafted benches into the back of her truck. Emily, noticing Kara's curious glance, flashed a bright smile and waved. Without a second thought, Kara wandered over. "Those are beautiful," Kara said, pointing at the wooden benches. "You made them?" Emily nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yeah, from the wood near the river. I'm Emily, by the way." "I'm Kara. My dad's the forest ranger here." She extended a hand, and as their fingers met, something unspoken passed between them, as natural as the rustle of the wind through the trees. Over the following weeks, they became inseparable. They spent quiet afternoons walking through hidden mountain paths, shared stories by the fire pit in Emily's workshop, and found comfort in each other's company amidst the stillness of the valley. Their love bloomed like wildflowers after the spring thaw, untouched by the complications that might arise from the outside world, until it did. Kara's father, a man of deep tradition and community standing, had always envisioned a future for his daughter that mirrored his own, one steeped in the natural rhythms of Pinecrest, rooted in family and community. He expected her to settle down, perhaps with someone who shared their long-standing ties to the land. Emily, for all her charm, was an outsider to Pinecrest's old ways, and her presence began to stir quiet concern in Kara's family. On the other side, Emily's older brother, who had long supported her free spirit, worried about the pressures Kara's family might place on their relationship. He admired his sister's courage but feared the strain that family expectations could create. One evening, beneath a sky full of stars, the weight of their unspoken worries finally came to a head. Sitting by the crackling campfire they'd built together, Emily gazed into the flames, her voice soft but uncertain. "Do you think we can really make this work? With your family and everything they expect of you? I don't want to be the reason you're torn between two worlds, Kara." Kara, her heart heavy but full of love, reached for Emily's hand. "You're not. You're my world, Em. We'll face whatever comes together. Love isn't something you can fit into someone else's expectations. It's ours. And I'm willing to fight for it." And so they did. Kara faced her father with quiet strength, explaining that the love she and Emily shared wasn't something to be dismissed. Slowly, though it took time, her family began to see the depth of her conviction and the sincerity of Emily's love for her. Emily, too, with her brother's eventual support, stood by Kara's side, confident that their love would weather the storms of disapproval. In the end, love triumphed not because it was easy but because they chose to nurture it. Kara and Emily continued to build a life together in Pinecrest, Emily's woodworking business flourishing, and Kara still walking the same trails she'd known since childhood, but now with Emily at her side. They created a life where tradition met change, where love redefined what family and community could be. Under the whispering pines and the wide open sky, Kara and Emily found their peace. Their love, like the mountains, stood tall, an enduring testament to the strength it takes to be true to one's heart. As the seasons turned, Kara and Emily's love continued to grow, taking root like the deep forest trees that surrounded them. Their life together was simple yet rich in its quiet moments, the kind that didn't need grand gestures, only the warmth of each other's presence. The town of Pinecrest, at first slow to embrace the changes in Kara's life, had also started to shift in its own way. Whispers about the two women had once filled the spaces between neighbors' doors, but over time, those whispers softened into something gentler. The people who had once seen their love as something outside the norm began to see it for what it truly was. A bond as natural and beautiful as the world that surrounded them. Kara and Emily had fallen into a rhythm that was all their own. Every morning they'd share a quiet breakfast on the porch of their cabin, sipping coffee as the sun rose over the peaks. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine needles hung in the early morning mist. Kara, who had grown used to the solitude of her mountain life, found that sharing those moments with Emily made everything feel more complete. One chilly evening in the heart of winter, after a long day spent preparing for the heavy snow that was forecasted to blanket the town, Kara returned home to find Emily in the workshop, putting the finishing touches on a project. As Kara entered, she was struck by the sight of Emily standing there, deep in concentration, surrounded by the raw scent of freshly cut wood and the soft glow of lantern light. It was a scene she had come to know so well, yet each time it stirred something new in her heart. "Hey," Kara said quietly, her voice just loud enough to carry over the crackling fire in the wood stove. Emily looked up, her face lighting up in that way it always did when she saw Kara. "You're home," Emily said, putting down her tools and wiping her hands on her apron. "I was just about to finish up." Kara stepped closer, pulling her into a warm embrace, both of them smelling faintly of cedar and earth. "Take your time. I love watching you work." Emily laughed softly, pressing her forehead against Kara's for a moment. "You say that, but you're really just here for the heat." Kara smirked, but her gaze softened as she gently brushed a stray curl from Emily's face. "Maybe, but I'm also here for you." They stood like that for a while, holding each other close as the world outside grew colder. It was in these moments, the quiet and unspoken ones, that they both felt the depth of their connection. They didn't need to say much. Their love was woven into the silence, into the steady rhythm of the life they'd built together. As the months passed, they found themselves navigating the balance between their love for each other and their responsibilities to their families. Kara's father, though still holding tightly to some of his old values, had begun to see the joy Emily brought into his daughter's life. Slowly but surely he softened, offering a reluctant but heartfelt acknowledgement of their relationship. One day he even invited Emily to join them for one of his famous hikes through the old-growth forest, a gesture that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Emily's brother, too, had become a regular visitor at their cabin, often bringing supplies and stories from the nearby town where he lived. The bond between the four of them grew in unexpected ways, not always perfect, but strong enough to withstand the occasional tension that arose. One spring afternoon, after the last remnants of snow had melted from the valley, Kara and Emily stood together on a ridge overlooking Pinecrest. They had hiked the familiar trail, their boots crunching over the thawing earth, and now found themselves at the very spot where they had shared their first long conversation all those months ago. The view was breathtaking. The valley stretched out before them, bathed in golden light, with the river winding its way through the forest below. Kara wrapped an arm around Emily's waist, pulling her closer as they both took in the sight. "You know," Emily began, her voice thoughtful, "I never thought I'd find a place that felt like home. But here with you, I can't imagine being anywhere else." Kara smiled, her heart swelling with the quiet contentment that only Emily seemed to bring. "Me neither. This is our place." They stood there side by side, watching as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows over the mountains. For them, the future wasn't defined by grand plans or dreams of something far away. It was in moments like this, the shared breath of the mountain air, the warmth of their bodies against the cooling breeze, and the knowledge that no matter what came their way, they would face it together. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Kara turned to Emily, her voice soft but steady. "I'm glad it's you." Emily looked at her, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Always." And so, in the heart of Pinecrest, where the mountains whispered secrets to those willing to listen, Kara and Emily continued their journey together. Their love, as constant as the rivers and as strong as the trees, endured. A quiet, steady force that shaped their lives in ways they could never have imagined. The final chapter. The seasons in Pinecrest had always moved in harmony, one blending seamlessly into the next. But this year, the winter had come early, biting harder than anyone had anticipated. The heavy snow fell relentlessly, coating the valley and the mountain trails in an endless sea of white. For Kara and Emily, that winter marked a turning point, though they didn't realize it at first. They had settled into their quiet life together, as they always had, facing the challenges of the world with steady resilience and love. But as the days grew shorter and the nights colder, something subtle but undeniable began to shift. Emily's hands, once so steady with their tools, had started to tremble slightly, and she grew more tired than usual. At first, Kara thought it was just the long winter wearing them down, the isolation of the mountains playing tricks on their bodies. But Emily felt it. Deep down, she knew something wasn't right. One afternoon, after weeks of trying to brush off the growing fatigue, Emily quietly admitted to Kara that she hadn't been feeling well. Kara's face tightened with worry, but she stayed calm, insisting that they make a trip to the town's small clinic. They both hoped for the best, that it would be something simple, something that would pass with time. But the news was far from what they had hoped. The doctor's face had been grave when he told them that Emily's illness wasn't just exhaustion. It was something far more serious, something that would steal her strength little by little. There was no cure, only time. And in that moment, both women realized that their time together was more finite than they had ever imagined. Winter dragged on, the cold cutting deeper than it ever had before. Emily's once vibrant energy, the light that had drawn Kara to her from the start, began to fade. She tried to keep working on her projects, though her hands often struggled with even the smallest tasks. Kara stood by her, always there to help, always there to hold her close when the weight of it all became too much. They still laughed together, still shared their quiet mornings on the porch, but now every moment felt more fragile, as if the world around them might shatter at any moment. One evening, as the soft snow fell outside their cabin, Kara found Emily sitting by the fire, her gaze lost in the flames. The firelight flickered over her face, illuminating the shadows of her fatigue. "I don't want this to end," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling logs. Kara knelt beside her, taking her hand in her own, her eyes filled with the quiet strength she had always shown. "We're not done yet. We still have time. And I'm here with you every step of the way." Emily smiled faintly, her fingers gently squeezing Kara's. "I know, but I can feel it slipping away. I just want you to remember the good, Kara. Promise me that." Kara's heart ached, but she nodded, blinking back tears. "I promise." The days passed slowly, marked by Emily's gradual decline. There were good days when she'd smile as brightly as she once had, when they'd take slow walks together in the snow-covered woods. But there were also the bad days, when Emily couldn't even leave the bed, her body too weak to move. As spring approached, the snow began to melt, revealing the first hints of green beneath the cold blanket. But the renewal of life outside only deepened the contrast to what was happening inside their cabin. Kara had hoped that the warmth of the season might bring some kind of respite, that maybe the fresh mountain air could somehow breathe new life into Emily's frail body. But it didn't. One crisp spring morning, as the sun streamed through the windows and the birds sang outside, Emily closed her eyes for the last time. She passed peacefully, her hand still held by Kara's, a soft smile on her lips as if she had found some measure of peace in her final moments. Kara sat beside her, staring at the woman she had loved so deeply, for what felt like an eternity. The silence in the cabin felt unbearable. The world outside was alive again, but inside, everything felt hollow, as if the heart had been ripped from it. And perhaps it had. In the weeks that followed, Kara continued living in the cabin alone. The townspeople, once skeptical of their love, came by to offer their condolences, but Kara found no comfort in their words. She returned to the mountains often, walking the trails they had once walked together, feeling the emptiness of her loss echo through the valley. One evening, months after Emily's passing, Kara found herself standing at the ridge where they had shared so many sunsets. The view was as breathtaking as ever, the valley below bathed in the soft glow of dusk. She could almost feel Emily's presence beside her, as if her laughter was carried on the wind, and for a moment Kara let herself believe that she wasn't really gone. But as the sky darkened, she knew that Emily was no longer here, not in the way she once had been. Her absence was like a shadow, always there, always felt. And yet Kara also knew that Emily's love, the joy and light she had brought into her life, would never truly leave. It lived on in the mountains, in the trees they had walked among, in the quiet moments they had shared. The sadness of her loss would always be with Kara, but so would the memory of their love, forever intertwined with the landscape they had called home. Standing there, Kara whispered into the evening air, as if Emily could still hear her, "I'll never forget." The wind stirred softly, as if in answer, and Kara turned to make her way down the mountain, the path before her uncertain, but with the strength to carry on. In the end, Kara's love for Emily would remain, a bittersweet reminder of the beauty and fragility of life. They hadn't had forever, but what they'd had was real, and that was enough.